Well, hello again from here inside Craven Cottage, and on the day Newcastle United could have gone top of the Premier League, we're left scraping the bottom of a barrel for positives. Yes, a 3-1 defeat, an entirely deserved defeat. Nonetheless, second half, they may have somehow extracted another result that had maintained the unbeaten start of the season. But let's be honest, this analysis we're going to have to go through now. We've been kicking the can down the road for a few weeks, haven't we? And this, after 5 matches unbeaten, was perhaps the result some of those performances have deserved. Finally, a defeat for Newcastle. And there are different areas of the team we've got to pick through because it's not functioning. It hasn't really functioned all season. The results they've got so far, and to put themselves within a win, like I say, of going to the summit of the Premier League, was more to do with resilience, togetherness, fortitude and individual moments. Now today, the defeat was about 2 things: the collective malaise, but also individual errors all over the pitch, really, and in particular for the 3 goals. Each one of Fulham's goals really came with the aid of a visit and assist in terms of Newcastle mistakes. If you go back to the first goal, Joe Linton and Fabian Schär, the second goal, Nick Pope, and the third goal there, finally, Bruno Guimaraes. And we'll start with Guimaraes because we've got to ask the question now of his place in the team, and certainly the award of the armband. Now, when Eddie Howe did it in the summer with the hope of it bringing an extra 10% out of Bruno, we've seen it in the past, and I've always used this phrase, haven't I, when he plays as if, you know, he dons that superhero cape and you get an extra 10-15% out of him. He plays like a man possessed and drives the team forward and is the absolute heartbeat of it. Well, this year, wow, he's been so far off it, and that's been really from the opening weekend of the season. It's got to the point now, after a game like that, and it was the question I asked of Eddie Howe afterwards, and you don't want to pin it too much on individuals, even though I mentioned Guimaraes in the question. At what point do you have to start taking these players out the team? Eddie said to us yesterday, it was no secret that he was referring to the likes of Guimaraes, that they have come back undercooked, and you put them in the team and you keep them in the team because that is the best way to get them up to speed. Okay, that's very good in theory, but Bruno's had 6 weeks now, and I am going to talk about individuals. Bruno's had 6 weeks now, and performances aren't getting better. If anything, that was his worst of the season there today. And the error at the end when he inexplicably lays the ball right across his own box, something you're taught not to do as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old when you first start playing football, never mind a 26-year-old Brazilian international, straight across, and that's just the tin hat on his afternoon. But away from that, even if that error hadn't happened, I was doing the Mail Sport merit marks there today for full time in the link in the description below. By the way, I think I'd already given Bruno 4.5, and this talks to the midfield. You've got Bruno at the base of a midfield 3, which in theory it's meant to be fairly fluid. The 3 players in there, no matter who they are. This is what Eddie Howe's team has been built on the last couple of seasons. They all do a little bit of everything. Well, the midfield for me now hasn't really worked since the start of last season. Even when you go back to Sandro Tonali coming in, let's park that opening day of the season against Aston Villa. But beyond that, and you think, why are you harking back to this now? But Brighton away, West Ham away, countless other occasions as well when we've spoke at length afterwards about the need for a proper number 6 to protect that space in between the back 4 and the midfield. How many times do we see opposition players have an absolute field day, cutting through the middle, the runs just not tracked? It's all too easy, and that was the same there again today. Alex Iwobi cutting in, Emile Smith-Rowe, even before he scored the goal, he's ran off Bruno far too easily and hit the crossbar. So the warning signs were there, and it's something we've been speaking about for a long time now. And when Bruno isn't at it, and he wasn't at it there today, and he hasn't been at it in recent weeks, that midfield area, the middle of the park, is absolutely brutally exposed. And I really do think we've reached a point now where you've got to say, do you have to take Bruno Guimaraes out of the team on merit? There are other players there. Yes, Joe Willock came in today, and Joe Willock, I think I gave him a 4 out of 10 in the isolation of his 45 minutes on the pitch. That was entirely fair, but I wouldn't even blame Joe Willock for that. He probably shouldn't have played today, and Eddie Howe's just admitted as much to us downstairs there. After all of that time out, to put him in to that game, he just looked lost. And as much as he's meant to provide that running power and that energy going forwards and going backwards, the game was just passing him by, and it was no surprise to see him come off at half time. But again, I would give Willock a free pass for that one. I'm less inclined to give Bruno a free pass. I'm less inclined to give Joe Linton a free pass, given how well Joe Linton played on the opening day of the season, an absolute midfield masterclass. Where's he been since then? And for me, ultimately, yes, there's problems in defence, and goodness, we've got to talk about the full-backs. Yes, there's issues up front where Alexander Isak is isolated and the wingers don't always look necessarily happy. But fundamentally for me, the team is malfunctioning in midfield, and it was no surprise when Newcastle changed shape in the second half. The 2-0 down at half-time, extremely fortunate to get to 2-0 at half-time, by the way. They then changed shape, and they looked better in the second half, and it wouldn't really, as I touched on at the top there, wouldn't have been a massive surprise for a spell there in the second half. They're back to 2-1, and they've had 2 one-on-ones with Anthony Gordon, then Fabian Schär. If they've got it to 2-2, and you know if they go to 2-2, I honestly think they go on and win 3-2, and we're praising their resilience, their fortitude, their togetherness, and the top of the league, and isn't it wonderful? But no, come on, I think we've got to start having these conversations now, because again, I use that phrase, we've just been kicking the can down the road to a degree, and today exposed a lot of the shortcomings, a lot of the things we've spoken about. But I do think the second half, that Eddie Howe's got to look at that and think, has 4-3-3, certainly 3 in the middle of midfield, the way they're operating, has that reached expiry? Do they have to look at a different shape now? Because it's not working. And yes, while it was better second half, really, if they had taken a result from this, this would have been an enormous sticking plaster over a really, really poor display. And to go back to the team selection, another issue Eddie Howe has got at the moment, the fullbacks, he changed both of them. Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall went out, and in came Kieran Trippier and Lloyd Kelly. Now, I think I said in my pre-match WhatsApp voice message that those were the selection calls I applauded. I could see the sense in that, because I do think Newcastle are better with Trippier on the pitch. And I do think Lloyd Kelly is a more solid option, or should be a more solid option, to Lewis Hall. But after 45 minutes, Lloyd Kelly's come in. He's got a chance there to make that left-back slot his own. Anyone's got the chance to make that left-back slot his own. Goodness, give anyone a go there. But Lloyd Kelly doesn't want to seem to grasp that. Lewis Hall himself doesn't really want to seem to grasp that. Dan Burns needed at centre-half. So Kelly come after 45 minutes, after a really difficult first half. Yeah, fair enough. Hall came on and did okay. On the other side, Livramento eventually replaces Trippier. Trippier hasn't started the season in the team. I think he should have done. I still think he's one of Newcastle's most influential players, but he's come in there and he just looks again a little bit undercooked. Barely got past the halfway line in the first half, just there in front of us where we are in the press box, and now sat next to a colleague, and we're saying, he looks, starting games, he looks way short of where he should be, where we know he can be. And part of the problem with Eddie making those 4 changes and starting Trippier and Barnes is that you can't then bring on Trippier and Barnes. And we've seen in every game this season, the changes from the bench have aided Newcastle massively. And Jacob Murphy came on, and credit to him, within 30 seconds of the restart there at half time. He's got the drive. He shows something no one from midfield has done so far at that point. Bursts straight through the middle, shows a bit of purpose, a bit of intent, a bit of energy, slips Harvey Barnes through. You just know in that instance what Barnes is going to do. He's going to stop, pause, chop in, and the goal there, he's going to tuck it into the bottom corner. Now, this as well speaks to what we've got to speak about now. The wingers, Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon. So they start with Barnes on the left, as they should, as that's the position he's best in, shown by the goal. And they start with Gordon on the right, but Gordon doesn't look necessarily happy on the right. So they switch them over. Barnes then comes to the right, and Barnes is totally redundant on the right. He's special move, he's ultimate, what would they used to call it in Street Fighter, he's kill move, that's just totally negated. Sort of mid-90s reference there for anyone who's brought up with a Sega Mega Drive. Yeah, and then in the second half, they switch it again. Barnes comes to the left, but Gordon plays through the middle more so. And again, Gordon doesn't look necessarily happy now. Is that because of the changing of position, or is it because of a summer in which the club explored the idea of selling them? There's certainly something not right and not quite there with the Anthony Gordon we know. And that's a problem for Eddie Howe. Of course it is, given his importance, given his brilliance. I watched him play for England on the left out in Dublin a couple of weeks ago, and he was fantastic. That was the Anthony Gordon of Newcastle last season. I don't think we've really seen that this season, even though at times in the second half with Barnes, he was Newcastle's best threat. So in the wide areas where once over, Eddie Howe had those combinations, you knew what they were going to do. You knew the playbook. There was Trippier and Almiron, there was Byrne, and there was Gordon. And you knew at times last season, the season before that, Joe Linton was part of that as well, with Joe Willock at times on the left-hand side, how it all was going to unfold. You could see the patterns of play before they even happened. Everybody could. That's not there now. There's no real intensity. There's no identity. I'm not quite sure what the team are at times. They're still striving for that identity. Where are those little patterns? Where's the playbook gone? What we see in the wide areas where the combinations aren't there, the personnel is chopping and changing in terms of who starts, who comes on, who changes here, there and everywhere in the games. That is symptomatic of a team that isn't functioning, allied with a midfield that just isn't working, a defence which, to be fair to it, the two centre-halves are left exposed with those runners coming onto them, and then a forward, Alexander Isak, who scored 1 goal out of 6, and Eddie Howe said, no, the toe injury he had during the week, he was okay there today, he did shake it off, but he didn't look right. Another one whose body language at times isn't great. So yeah, a hell of a lot to consider, and it was something I asked of Eddie Howe afterwards, where I just said, they've done well to get to this point, but what is the bigger picture? And he agreed, he wouldn't, I don't think he would watch this video or listen to you guys and disagree with any of it really in terms of the analysis. He knows that it's got to be better. Now, just to go back over the goals, let's pick through the game. Newcastle started well first 2 or 3 minutes. I know that sounds ridiculous, but they've got the goal disallowed when they've cut Fulham open for offside. It was offside, but within 60 seconds, Joe Linton gives the ball away. Traore puts the ball in, and Fabian Schär, you would say that Raul Jimenez lost his marker, but Fabian Schär just decided not to mark him for some inexplicable reason. Again, I've used that word twice now. Raul Jimenez steps off him, spins all the time in the world, puts it in. There you go. That's 1-0. The warning signs are then there. Smith Rowe hits the bar before he eventually gets to his goal, runs off Bruno, gets into the box, pokes on target, and it looks like Nick Pope was going to put his cap on it. Quite what he was thinking, I don't know. Listen, I'll give him a pass to a degree because he makes a brilliant save at the start of the second half there, and we know Nick Pope's value and Nick Pope's worth to this team. He's saved Newcastle far more than he has cost them, but wow, that was a howler. That's 2-0. They're looking to get to the break at 2-0. They come out, they get the Barnes goal. And like I say, there was moments there where you thought they might just nick something. Tonali comes on, doesn't really make the impact we know he perhaps can and perhaps should do, along with others as well. Only really Murphy worked as a substitute, and Bruno does what he does in the 93rd minute, and that's game over. And it is, guys, a deserved defeat, and Eddie Howe didn't hide away from that on full time, to be fair to him. Now, belatedly, we've reached the merit stars, and yeah, it's that sort of afternoon where I'm not really going to award a 3. I think a 2 goes to Jacob Murphy. I have to say that because for him to come on and for Newcastle to have been as bad as they were in the first half, I just think he offered and injected something that others didn't. Like I say, when I gave my Mail Sport merit ratings, the 1 to 10, I think Murphy was the best with a 6.5. But yeah, I thought he did okay. Now, is Jacob Murphy the answer long term going forward? You then bring him in to start? Well, no, I don't think you probably do. But nonetheless, credit to him today. And the other player who will get the solitary 1 star, well, that's Harvey Barnes. I thought the players who started, the attacking starters at least, he was definitely the best. He took his goal very well. He tired towards the end, indicative of him needing more games, keep him in the team. While Harvey Barnes has got to stay in the team, and it's up to Howe to find a solution as to how to accommodate Isak, Barnes and Gordon, but he's got to do that. So yeah, Barnes is the recipient of that loan 1 star. Well, guys, that's just about it from me for now. Please hit like, comment, subscribe. Leave your thoughts below the line as well. There's a lot to pick over from that. I want to know from you, what's Newcastle's best formation? I don't really know. What do they do now? 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 in midfield, 2-3-1. I really don't know. You guys tell me, and what personnel do you put in that as well? Because they've got to find a way forward, because this wasn't a shock today. Nonetheless, there's no need to massively overreact. They've still got very good players, some of which aren't up to speed. A very good manager. Yes, there's the Grummins behind the scenes where you just cannot have a sporting director, manager on speaking. It's crazy, Let's hope there's some better, more positive news coming out of the club on that front. But in the short term, Eddie Howe's got a little bit of work to do with what's happening out there on the pitch, because Wimbledon on Tuesday night, and then, yeah, the small matter of Manchester City next Saturday. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, like, subscribe, comment. There's a thanks button as well. And I'll see you again on Tuesday morning when I'll be speaking to Eddie Howe ahead of that game down at Wimbledon. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.